The night the lights went out wasn't an accident. It was justice. Every porch lamp, every garage opener, every smug smile in that HOA neighborhood, gone in an instant. I sat on my porch, coffee in hand, watching them panic. Flashlights flickered, alarms blared, and the HOA president, oh, that smug guy in his polo, was on his lawn screaming into his dead phone. They'd cut my power to teach me a lesson. Too bad the substation feeding this entire community? Yeah, that's mine. I moved into Oak Ridge Estates thinking it'd be a peaceful corner of suburbia. Quiet streets, manicured lawns, neighborly hellos. I'd just retired from 20 years working in energy infrastructure. Power distribution systems, substations, the works. Bought a modest house with enough yard for my dog, Max, and a view of the hills. First week was great. Then I met Cliff Baxter, the HOA president, the kind of guy who calls the cops on kids selling lemonade because it's unlicensed commerce. Always in that same pastel polo, clipboard in hand with the HOA rules printed thicker than a Bible. It started small. A letter about my grass being an inch too tall. Then a warning about my unapproved solar panels, which I'd installed legally before moving in. Cliff loved rules. He lived for control. And the HOA board? A pack of yes-men who'd never question him. Thing is, I don't like being told what to do, especially not by a man whose only source of power comes from a neighborhood committee. The letters turned into fines. Fines turned into threats. Apparently, my small shed, a locked, discreet structure on the back edge of my property, violated aesthetic uniformity guidelines. They had no clue it wasn't just storage. It was a maintenance hub for a private substation I owned and leased to the county decades ago. It happened to be the very one feeding power to Oak Ridge Estates and the surrounding neighborhood. But Cliff didn't care. He wanted control. When I refused to remove the shed, he said they'd take enforcement measures. I laughed. They didn't. A few weeks later, I came home to find the power at my house dead. My refrigerator off, security cams offline, lights gone. They'd actually hired a contractor to disconnect my line. Apparently, they thought cutting my electricity would bring me in line with HOA regulations. Petty, illegal, stupid. I made a few calls. Turns out the HOA had filed a bogus maintenance claim with the city to justify it. So legally, I couldn't retaliate, not directly, but I didn't need to call a lawyer. I had something better, knowledge. That substation was due for scheduled maintenance, and the HOA had ignored my repeated notices about contributing to the upkeep fund. They wanted to play hardball? Fine. I'd play with the breaker switches. It started one Saturday night. The neighborhood was glowing. Porch parties, backyard barbecues, all powered by my infrastructure. I was sitting at my desk, sipping whiskey, as the system dashboard blinked at me. Scheduled maintenance mode, pending. I hit confirm. Within seconds, every light in Oak Ridge Estates blinked once. Then darkness swallowed the whole place. Silence. Then chaos. Car alarms started screaming. People stumbled out of their homes, confused, shouting. Flashlights darted across lawns. I could hear Cliff's voice echoing down the cul-de-sac, barking orders like some suburban general. Then came the kicker. The HOA's emergency generator failed too. Why? Because Cliff had cut corners years ago and used my lines for backup routing. Their entire rule-enforcing paradise crumbled in minutes. By morning, news vans had rolled in. People were furious. No water pressure, no refrigeration, and the HOA's fancy community center was pitch black. When the power company arrived, they traced the outage right back to the substation. Guess who they had to call for authorization to restore it? Me. I didn't pick up the first 3 calls. Let 'em sweat. When I finally answered, Cliff was fuming, his voice cracking. He wanted it fixed immediately. I told him I'd be happy to, once my property and all associated equipment were properly respected under state property law. And maybe, just maybe, after the HOA paid the full overdue maintenance contribution with interest. They caved by noon. The HOA wired the funds, issued a public apology, and sent someone to reconnect my power. But the damage was already done. Residents were furious at Cliff for letting his ego cost them a night of chaos. Within a month, he resigned for personal reasons. The board crumbled. The community voted to dissolve the HOA entirely. Now, Oak Ridge Estates is just a quiet neighborhood again. No rules about grass height, no power trips, no fines for paint colors. Just people minding their own business. Sometimes I walk past the old HOA office, now an empty space with peeling wallpaper, and think about how close they came to ruining a good place over petty control. And every night when I see those streetlights glow again, I remember one thing. Power isn't about who writes the rules. It's about who controls the switch.